This episode of the podcast featuring Glenn Fleming, you may know him from the Discovery Channel, and he is the gunsmith out at drivetanks.com. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our friends at At Computers. At Computers has been providing IT solutions for all of Southwest Florida since 2004. So even if you don't live in Southwest Florida and you need help, give them a call at 239-283-1120.
2648.
239-283-1120. They can log in your computer remotely with your permission and with your assistance, and they can help you resolve all your computer problems as long as you have internet connection. If you do live in the Southwest Florida area, give them a call. They can help you with computer repair, laptop repair, camera installations, network expansions, server installations. Right now is the time. If you're still running 2008 and even Server 2012, it's time to get into a new version of Windows Server. So give them a call at 239-283-1120 or go to act-capecoral.com.
Digital 410 Productions proudly presents What's the Scuttlebutt Podcast with your host, Don Evans.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us for another episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt Podcast, your favorite World War II based podcast. Today's going to be another one-on-one interview with myself and our guest today, Mr. Glenn Fleming, joining us from Texas, where usually our co-host, Jeff Copsetta, also joins us from. But as I said, today is a one-on-one interview. First and foremost, Glenn, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for joining us today, sir.
Hey, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
You've had a very long, storied career, but I found something on your Instagram page today that I wasn't aware of, and I want to talk to you before we get into the World War II stuff.
Yeah, sure, man.
Are you still working in radio, or when did that happen?
No, when I got out to drivetanks.com, the Wi-Fi out here is pretty iffy. I did it for a little while, but it just didn't work out, so I stopped doing the radio show. Which kind of sucks because I really enjoyed doing radio.
Were you doing it over an ISDN line?
Yeah, I was just doing it over my phone, man. There's very little phone service out here, and it kind of sucked. I really enjoyed it, man. I like doing radio a whole lot.
Oh, I loved radio. I actually worked as a producer for terrestrial radio for 6.5 years. Crazily enough, the show I worked for, they're a legacy show. This is unheard of in modern day radio. They've been on the same station since 1993. Same team. Wow. Number one afternoon show around here. Did it for like 6.5 years. Loved radio. You and I are old school guys. We grew up listening to radio, talk radio, Howard Stern, Anthony Openy, all that stuff. And we loved radio. But sadly, like TV, we've all seen the commercials for the Discovery Plus, the Disney Plus, everybody's going to streaming service now because much like radio has been, fighting Pandora and Spotify and all that, TV's doing the same thing. And I don't know, I think cable television and satellite TV, as far as we know it, will be gone within 5 to 6 years. It's all going to be streaming services.
I kind of agree with you on that, man. I mean, it's cable TV, no big loss there, really, man. But, the other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of history behind radio, and it's kind of sad to see that go the wayside. Radio will always be there, especially down here in Florida, where radio gets its re-immersion every few years is when we get hit with a hurricane. And like 3 years ago, I was without power and water for 16 days. And
wow, that sucks.
Obviously, a lot of people were, especially younger cats, like 18, 20-year-olds, they were being introduced to radio for the first time because they would always stream their stuff, and now their parents are getting the FM radio out of the closet, popping some batteries into it. And we would get calls from new listeners all the time because I still worked in radio at the time. Like, hey, this is all new to me, but this is pretty cool. So radio will always be there as far as the emergency stuff. But
definitely.
It's kind of sad to see it go. So let's get a little background. One of the things I like to do when I have people on the show for the first time is get a little background history. And for you, especially with the theme of this show, my co-host is former military as well. I never served, but I know you were a helicopter gunner. Give us a little background on when you joined up and your times of service and how that kind of led you to where you are today.
Yeah, man. I joined up in 93 in the Air Force, and in 97 transferred over to being a helicopter gunner. Did that till 2007, got retired. There wasn't really a whole lot of transfer between what I was doing and what gunsmithing and stuff like that. Gunsmithing has kind of always been my hobby, and just kind of right place, right time, a bunch of areas, and kind of fell into my lap. And of course, I was on the show for a while, did some TV, and did the radio show, like we said. And then that all ended up with me moving out here to the Ox Hunting Ranch and working at drivetanks.com. it's a really cool place to be, man. I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I see a lot of great photos on your social media pages and all that. When you were in the Air Force, what was the what equipment were you flying on?
I was flying on the MH-53J Pueblo. It was an Air Force Special Operations helicopter. The best job in the world, man. I'll never do anything that tops that job. I mean, people come down here and they're like, "Oh, you got the best job in the world." I'm like, "No, second best."
Had it, moved on to the second best.
Yeah.
What got you into the World War II firearms? I saw that you've worked on MG42s, MG43s, STG44s, STG45s. How did you get into the World War II? I guess maybe if you're going to be a gunsmith, you're going to need to learn how to work on all that former equipment, right?
Yeah. I've always been into the World War II German stuff. I just really like mechanically how they operate, specifically the MG34. I actually love that gun. It's a really, really cool gun, right? It's just a work of art. It's complicated as hell, but it's really neat. So I kind of transferred that when I got out the military. I started gunsmithing, just working on, shotguns, hunting guns, pistols, stuff like that. And my boss at the time had a SOT. He was a manufacturer as well, so I could open up my horizons. And I built an MG42, and that kind of took off from there. It turns out I was really good at building machine guns, so I just started building them, started working on them for people, and just kind of went from there, man. It kind of exploded. It kind of worked out really well for me.
I would assume with the internet and the availability of content now, it's probably easier to come across some documentation when working on a firearm for the first time. But back then, in the early 2000s, where does one find paperwork on how to appropriately rebuild an MG42 that's been demilled and cut in half? I mean, how?
Well, you just kind of have to figure it out from all the parts. I mean, like, say your MG42 is, I mean, they're cut more than this, but say it's cut like right in the middle of the receiver.
And it's never a clean cut either. It's the biggest hack job, too.
You used to get plasma cuts, but now they're all torch cuts, and they got this much removed and stuff. But you can put the top cover on between the front half and the second half, and that's going to give you your distance on the receiver for how big your cut is, because, you're never quite sure. When I started out, there wasn't really any blueprints out or anything like that. So that gives you the proper distance, and then you just jig it up and weld it up from there.
What about headspace and all that? I mean, obviously, when it comes to the battery and the thing not blowing up in your face, you got to have that head spacing exactly correct.
Yeah, on some guns, again, you can use the parts to figure out the headspace of it. The 42 is a little different. You use the camming piece. And that's what sets your barrel. That's the part where your bolt, actually the rollers come out and lock into the barrel. So you can use that camming piece for a good idea of your distances and stuff like that.
Now I know you say you enjoy German weaponry and you've rebuilt quite a few of them. Out of all of them, which one was the biggest pain in the ass, or what you would consider over-engineered?
MG34, hands down.
Really?
Oh, yeah. The tolerances on it are really, really, they're slim. If you mess it up a little bit, you've messed it up a lot. And, I mean, for instance, the bolt has like 30 pieces in it. Just the bolt has 30 parts in it. It's a really complex gun, but it's a lot of fun to work on. And when they run great.
Obviously, it's kind of hard to quantify this verbally, but what was the big changes between the 42 and the 43?
Oh, well, the 42 and between the 34 and the 42, there's not really much in common beyond the caliber and the belts that it uses. I mean, the 42 has rollers, kind of delayed roller action on it, and the 34 has a rotating bolt head that goes. There's rollers in it, but it rotates as opposed to coming out. The other kind of similarity between the two is the way the gas is trapped to work recoil. It's up in the front. There's a little booster that traps the gas between the, in the little cup between the booster and the barrel, and it pushes the barrel back, thereby unlocking the bolt, and the whole recoil process starts.
Do you have much experience working on M1 Garands?
A little bit, yeah.
The reason I ask is obviously with our World War II based podcast, a big part of our audience, and myself included, we're living historians, i.e. World War II reenactors, and obviously a majority of us use M1 Garands, and I didn't know, out of the few you've worked on, have you seen a familiar or common failure point, or things that need to be, that maybe perhaps we overlook when maintaining these guns that you've seen cause most of the problems that bring them your way?
The only thing, we shoot ours over here at Drive Tanks. We shoot it a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
People come in and want to shoot the hell out of it. And the only thing I can think of that's really been broken on it is the op rod.
Yeah.
But we use the real good M1 Grand specific ammo too. We don't just use
the American Eagle brand.
I believe so. I don't. No, it might be Previe. I don't remember though.
Yeah, I know American Eagle makes a brand specifically for M1s, and if you like, somebody was at a gun store one time. They called me up and said, "Hey, they got a bunch of old M2 ball ammo over here," so they picked up some of that for me. The problem I have with mine, which is over my shoulder, and now I use Atlantic Wall blank adapter, and I only get my blanks from Atlantic Wall because that's where my blank adapter's from.
Yeah.
And I have this reoccurring issue where I'll be out in an event, in the middle of a tactical event or even a public reenactment, and I don't know if it's a hot round. I thought I resolved it by giving my blank adapter a thorough cleaning, but even after that, basically, I'll have a round that's either hot or whatever. My bolt carrier slams back so hard that the thumb dislodges from the charging handle.
Oh, wow.
And so then I have to break it down in the middle of the field, redo it, put a new clip in, and it'll run a few more. But maybe once out of every 5 clips, that damn charging handle dislodges, and it's the strangest damn thing.
That is kind of weird. I mean, have you checked your recoil? Or I forget what it's technically called on the M1, but the recoil spring might be going a little weak.
Yeah, that's. I was thinking the thing. Maybe I was thinking was maybe that thumb that goes underneath the carrier. Maybe that's just getting worn just a little bit.
That's a possibility.
There's a matching area on it just there's a gap or something. I don't know. It's the weirdest damn thing.
I mean, I really haven't messed around with blank firing guns too much,
Sure.
so I'm not familiar with how good the loading is on blanks and stuff like that. But if it's like, I don't know, a factory blank, I'd be kind of surprised if it was the ammo causing that issue.
Yeah. Sad thing is unfortunately, I have one of the those lovely International Arms Company M1s because when I went out looking for them, I just went. Oh, the civilian marksmanship program were completely sold out. This is before they got their imports in, and I found this one at a gun show, and I haven't had any problems with it. You know, I know people say the early ones were bad. Not that I get into too much politics at a living history event, but every once in a while, if gun laws and all that come up, I kind of use this as an example of the assault rifle laws from the 80s, how they had to take a perfectly good Springfield receiver, throw it away, and then a company in Canada milled out the exact same part. Only difference is the serial number. Now it's legal, and the insanity behind that. And so I show a perfectly good M1 Garand that has really less value simply because they had to swap out the receiver simply over a serial number that was issued to the military versus being civilian. And
I could go off on gun laws, man. Trust me, they're so asinine and so arbitrary that it's enraging.
Well, I know you were in Louisiana for a while. Where did you grow up?
I was a military brat. I was born in Georgia, but grew up mostly in Louisiana, but I moved around a whole lot.
How long?
And that transferred into being an adult. When I joined the military, I moved all over the place. So, I was gone all the time.
How long you been in Texas?
That's a good question. I think it'll be 4 years in February, or next month, rather.
I saw a concerning video this morning. Apparently, there's a state representative in your lovely state who is trying to, let's say, rewrite the Castle Doctrine. Have you heard of this yet?
Oh, really? I haven't heard about that. No.
According to him, in the video I saw from the lady reading the bill proposal, he thinks that, hey, if someone's coming to break in your house, they're simply just trying to get their loot and leave. And so he wants to rewrite the Council Doctrine that, not saying you can't defend yourself, Glenn, but first you must try to actively leave the premises so that they can do whatever it is that they're at your house trying to do, acquire all your shit. And
I mean, they're just, they're pour down on their luck criminals. I mean, they don't mean you any harm. I saw an interview with I think it was a full-on representative, a U.S. representative, that he said something to the order of, if somebody broke in his house, he wouldn't shoot them. He'd try to sit down and talk with them and see where they're coming from, and
because
sing Kumbaya or something,
Nothing a good hopped up meth addict or someone on heroin withdrawal who's trying to get a quick fix.
They'll appreciate the talk, no doubt.
They're all about, when you're Jones and you're all about a nice sit down and have a nice talk with a complete stranger who may change your ways.
Yeah, maybe make him some tea that'll cure the DTs,
So. You got the invite to come be the gunsmith over at World of Tanks, or is it Drive Tanks?
DriveTanks.com.
Yeah, I know you guys work with World of Tanks, the game, because they do a lot of cross promotion and see a lot of stuff on YouTube. But you're at drivetanks.com. Obviously, now you're working on. Well, you've always kind of worked on large bore stuff as well, right?
Yeah, that started when I was on the show on Discovery Channel.
Mm-hmm.
They bring in tanks, artillery, and what have you, and I'd work on those. That it really broadened my horizons working on that show. I'm really thankful I was on it.
One of the things that I thought was cool being a living historian, I wasn't even in reenacting back then. One of the things that he made that I would love to see come to market, but obviously it didn't, was he made the soft tip launchable bazooka round.
Oh, yeah.
That way, when people are firing bazookas, he held up the gas mask bag to make sure it bounced off them. Mm-hmm. And I think he filled it with flour or something to generate some smoke. But I've seen some crazy, speaking of tanks, being down here in South Florida, I have the luxury and benefit. I haven't done so much lately, but when I first started, I used to do a lot of training with World War II armor. And Rabbi Rob. And I forget how many tanks he has now. I know he has I know he has one Hellcat. I think he has a couple of M2. I think he's right around 6.
Okay.
The famous German tank from Save It Private Ryan that they blew up with a sticky bomb.
Yeah.
That's currently under a full restoration. He got a hold of that a few years ago. Was quite surprised of the Hollywood armor on it. Most of it was plywood and PVC that was painted. And so they did a full blown off the frame restoration to rebuild it so that when we do these, he ships these tanks up to Ohio for the D-Day events and all over the place.
Yeah.
But so I've had the luxury and benefit of working with them. Now, clearly what you guys do, you're firing live rounds, which the compression is a hell of a lot more than when you're firing blank rounds. But as someone who's been laying in a prone position about 100 yards in front of a Sherman tank that's shooting blank rounds, I know the compression that comes off of those barrels, and I know the psychological effect of. I remember I was out at his farm doing a training event, and I was prone up in a position because we were getting ready to overrun a German position, and just the feeling, the vibration of the ground, even when these tanks are 200 yards behind you. And obviously we're in a make-believe situation, but those make-believe situations can kind of psychologically be as real as you make them, as Tom Hanks talks about when making movies. But when you're laying prone up, trying not to be seen, and you just feel the whole ground rumbling because these tanks are creeping up behind you, I can only imagine the psychological effect of that in a real-world environment, real-world scenario where these guys are out to kill you versus playing make-believe.
Oh, yeah.
And just those tanks are just insane.
There's a reason I didn't go in the Army, man. I was all about being in helicopters, flying around. You're open, you can see stuff. Screw being in a tank, man. That's just a step up from a submarine for me, those guys in it, more power to them, dude. Because that's a bullet magnet right there. Everybody sees a tank, that's the first thing they want to get rid of.
Yep, which is why we would train with them, because when you're doing a reenactment or in a public, to make it more realistic, a tank crew is nothing without infantry to protect them from people running up with bombs and grenades and that. So, and obviously you can't just show up an event and have 5 random guys there. You have to have people familiar with the safety commands and the distance to stay away from them. So we would actually go out there and spend quite a lot of time with them. But I've seen some of the videos when you guys do those live fires. You guys are doing those with a tether remotely, right?
Yeah. It's all the original components are used in the tank: breech ring, barrel, breech block, all that stuff. And let's take the Sherman for example. The breech ring on that is like 77, 78 years old. One day it's gonna go. One day it's gonna explode, and you never know when that is. So it's a lot safer to shoot it from outside the tank than inside. The other thing is we have a muzzle brake on our Sherman, and that kind of directs the blast back towards the tank. So when you pull it, you get a lot more effect by doing, personally, by doing it with the lanyard outside. And lastly, it's actually kind of boring to shoot a tank from the inside. The tank rocks, so you can't see what you're shooting or what you're hitting at. A little puff of smoke. It's not that loud. It's loud, but it's not as loud as being on the outside. It's certainly a more visceral. Is that right?
Yeah.
Visceral experience to be on the outside of the tank and shoot.
It'd be kind of like shooting Tamarite from the inside of your car.
That's a good analogy, actually. That's pretty good.
Speaking of which, Second Armor has a long tom now. And of course, they shoot blanks out of those too. But I was doing this podcast remotely from the cab of my truck one time during one of these events. And every time they're firing these things off like once every hour and a half, and I had to move my truck because the windshield would flex every and this just from the blank rounds.
Oh yeah.
The compression, the concussion that comes off of those are insane. But back to where you're saying about safety, and kind of same, not probably different production company, but same parenting TV station. I'm sure you're aware of this, and we in the reenacting community are aware of this. I think they were in Minnesota or somewhere in the flyover states. They were shooting a show for Discovery a few years back.
Yeah, I think you're talking about I believe they were in Portland or somewhere in Oregon.
And they were either shooting some B-roll or they were wanting to get some shot of a live round. And much like you said, the equipment inside is old. The guys inside were trained. They own the tank. They'd used it hundreds of times before. They're trained. And something happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a misfire, and then I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. But something happened, causing death to both the persons inside the tank. And
that was a pretty bad scene. I didn't know the guys personally, but I have some friends who did, and they said they were cool guys. So kind of sucks. But I mean that goes to a minute of inattention will really do you wrong in this business. So you always got to kind of be on your toes and be ready for whatever.
We're going to go a little off the rails here real quick because not only I have the interest in World War II and the firearms, but you and I also share a common interest, at least maybe. Obviously, with you and your military background, it was something instilled with you for a while back, but I noticed that you're trying to get back into a little fitness and maybe get a little healthier in your older age. You and I both got the white beards going on here. I'm 42. And
I'm 50, man, so don't feel bad.
Does it get harder the older we get?
Well, I'm a little messed up from the military, too many hard landings and stuff, so I got like bad joints all over and a TBI and all kinds of stuff. So it's not easy to do, but I've been doing it and it's worked out really well. I lost like 40 pounds.
Congratulations.
Since I've been out here, so I'm pretty happy with it. Plus, working out, exercising makes you feel better about yourself. Besides just the fact of looking better, it puts you in a way better state of mind.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I do 3 podcasts because I find that when you have a podcast, you have a general entertainment podcast, you spend too much time on World War II, that audience gets bored. If you have a World War II podcast, you talk about fitness and that audience gets bored. And so I have 3 of them. I got this one. I got one called What's in Your Head podcast. And then I have a motivational podcast called Failed to Fail. And that one we kind of get into the fitness stuff. But one of the frustrating things for people who work out irregularly and who discover the effect that physical fitness has on one's mind. The most frustrating part for people like us is when we see people who suffer from depression like I used to, or high anxiety, or just anything. When you try to explain to them, hey man, go to the gym with me for a while, or hey man, go running with me. They're like, you're insane. And it's like, trust me, you got to give it a month or two, but it dramatically. Like I'm at the point now. I'm sure you're the same way that if you don't go, you start getting pissy with people, and your whole mindset changes.
Yeah. Now, when I got out the military, I had a pretty decent case of PTSD, and I was all, anxiety, depression, and the whole enchilada. So working out or exercise in general has definitely helped with that, man. I mean, 100%. I mean, there's no doubt about that in my mind at all. I mean, it's not, it might as well be. It's kind of night and day, And if I wouldn't have been exercising, I'd be sitting at home watching TV with my thumb up my butt, getting fat and being depressed about it.
I was one of those cats who was always super skinny, to the point that when my parents got divorced and my dad took me to the doctor because he thought I was not being taken care of properly by my mom. My doctor said, no, he just got a fast metabolism. I'm 6'5". I weighed 175 pounds until I was 25 years old.
Oh,
wow. At 21, lived in I left Ohio, moved to California, and I actually had to start going to the gym because the women out there thought I was a heroin addict or something. So I had to start putting a little muscle mass on. But then when I moved to Florida and I got in my 30s, I got hooked on a little thing called Call of Duty. So I was doing the whole Xbox thing for 8 hours a day, drinking Mountain Dew, eating tacos. At my biggest, I got up to 243 pounds, and I was shopping for a size 38. And then I had 2 kidney stones. And at the time, I was working in radio. I was doing because professionally now. I've been running an IT firm with my father since 2004, but at the time I was working in radio and doing the IT work. So I was getting about 5 in the morning, working until noon, going and doing radio until 6 o'clock at night, and then sometimes going back to work. And so I was drinking like 3 Mountain Dews, 2 Monster Energies, 5-hour energy, and I ended up in a hospital with the worst pain ever. If you ever find that, you know, that time of the day when you wake up in the morning and your body starts producing its waste and you're ready to offload?
Yeah.
If you find around 4 in the morning, you can't urinate or do anything else, and you get a sharp pain in your stomach, and you've noticed you've had lower back pain for the last 4 or 5 months, turns out it's a kidney stone or two. The only time in my life I have vomited from pain. You'll find yourself in a fetal position in your bathroom. And so long story short, after that, that's when I changed everything. And I'm down. My walking around weight right now is depending on how much I run, I go from, I'm 220 today, but I'll go anywhere from 220 down to 218. I think last October I got a wild hair at my ass. And I decided to run 100 miles in 1 month. And I got down to 207. But that's just, for my height, that's just too insane. And so, but no, and it's, where it's really improved in this subject matter is I have photos of me wearing the same uniform, my first ID uniform with the M1 jacket and the trousers. I actually just had to buy whole new uniforms because I lost so much weight that it makes my impression look more authentic opposed to being the overweight, reenactor that most of the world makes fun of Americans for, because half our cats. Obviously, go ahead.
I was in the same boat, man. I mean, I got out to drive tanks. I weighed like 190 something pounds, and
can't squeeze in the hatch.
Once I started working out and stuff, I got down. I'm right now about 163, give or take. So I'm pretty happy at this weight. And again, the best part about all that was getting rid of all my fat clothes and buying new clothes that fit. I was real happy about that.
And I've said this story before, but my brother, when I first started getting into fitness, losing weight, he's like, "Oh, you're one of those douchebags now." I'm like, "What douchebag is that?" He's like, "There's people who post pictures on Instagram you working out." And I said, yes. And here's 2 reasons why. One, I started doing it. I would just check in, not even post photos. I would check in on Facebook at the gym just so I can go back and look at my timeline to see how often I was working out. But then I would slowly start posting pictures on Facebook, Instagram. And 2 things happen. One, people start talking crap, which the internet hates positivity.
Yeah.
And 2, I would get private messages from people my age saying, hey, and I've actually gotten some from other fellow reenactors saying, hey, if you can do this stuff, I can do it. And I've actually had people say, because of you, one of my veterinarian clients, she was like 30. She's like, because of your post, I started going back to the gym, and I think she's down 30 pounds.
Oh, nice. And
so I thought, well, that's cool. But I love the fact when people start talking crap on the internet, because I use that as motivation to continue working out. Because I know as soon as I stop, they're going, "Oh, mister, I'm better than you. What happened? Why aren't you working out anymore?" And also, when I worked in radio, I would get a little weak. I'd walk into the break room, and one of the sales guys, "Yeah, go ahead, get that honey bun. I'll be an extra 2 hours at the gym," and it keeps me honest. So I would find by posting on the internet, even though people hate it, the fact that I don't want to give them the satisfaction of failing, it keeps me motivated to keep me going, and it keeps me honest.
I've been pretty lucky. I mean, I don't have a lot of haters on Instagram and all that. I mean, occasionally I do, but it's the internet. Yeah. But I have gotten a lot of positive response from working out and advocating, that kind of thing. And I have gotten some responses from people, like you said, that are like, "Man, I started doing what you do, and it's worked out really well for me. Thank you." That kind of stuff. Which makes you feel pretty good and makes you want to go hit the gym even more.
Speaking of keeping honest, Grunt Style, for a while they had one of their breakoff brands. They had a shirt for their gym said "Reps, not text." And so I bought that shirt and I wear it at the gym just so, once again, to keep me honest. So when I have that shirt on, I won't even change the station on my Pandora because I don't want somebody to get a picture of me looking like I'm texting while wearing a shirt that says "Reps, not text." And so that keeps me motivated. Choose the channel, leave it alone, and go do your workout and get the job done.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I work out in a gym here in Ranch, and I'm realistically the only guy who's working out at that gym right now. It's a cool little gym, great equipment, but it's not heated, and it's cold, and I hate the cold. So it's definitely difficult to motivate myself to go do that sometimes. But the good thing is they don't have Wi-Fi at the gym, so I don't have to worry about screwing around on my phone or anything like that.
What's the definition of Texas cold?
Oh man, for me, anything below 70 degrees, I'm freezing my nuts off.
It's funny because I grew up in Ohio, and so when I was a kid, we'd be at the bus stop. Once it got to 50, we were wearing shorts, but I've been living in Florida since
No.
2004. If it gets down to below 60, I got hooded sweatshirts on.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's been getting down to the light 60s now, and so I've been cracking my windows because next weekend I have a tactical event up in Georgia on a Boy Scout camp. No publics, just reenactors. We're gonna have a weekend long tactical event.
That's cool.
And I'm gonna be sleeping in my pup tent on the ground. And last winter I was up there, and last time I was up there, at night it got into the high 40s.
Oh
And
no.
So
No.
so sleeping on the hard ground under an 80-year-old pup tent in the high 40s, being a Florida boy, even with 5 wool blankets. So that last year I ended up crawling into some of the Georgia guys' tents because they had a propane heater in there. But I've decided this year I'm going to stop at Tractor Supply, get me a bale of square hay, lay it down on the bottom of my tent, and get my World War II sleep. Because when I do these events, I try to do what we're all supposed to be doing, which is living through their boots. And so you'll see some of these, and granted, we're all older because, well, this shit's expensive and most 16-year-olds can't afford to do it. That's why most reenactors are 30 and up, because we have careers and we can afford $200 boots and $100 trousers. But when I do these events, you'll see guys sleep on yoga mats. They'll have pillows. They'll have modern day. I try to, until my age and my body will no longer allow me to do it, which I've discovered if my body's good for about 5 hours on the hard ground, so I try to stay up late. But I use my haversack or musette bag, depending on the impression I'm doing, as my pillow. No modern stuff. So when I go, I have 5 wool blankets. Like I said, I'll get some square hay. I have an original 1942 pup tent that I sleep under, and I try to go as authentic as I can. The only thing really, as we say in the hobby, Farby, that I bring is and you guys can see it on the YouTube channel, I built a podcast studio in the box because last year when I went up to this event, I left my damn microphones in my garage. So now I made a box that looks like an ammo crate. All I do is simply pop the top, put my laptop in, plug the sound card up, and everything's self-contained.
That's cool.
But when it's taken apart, it just looks like an ammo crate. And so that's the only real thing. And I have another one that I keep my cooler in. But other than that, I try to not bring modern day stuff. Obviously, my cell phone and a battery charger, because the wife calls, you got to answer the phone. If somebody wanted to come out there to where you're at, how does that work? They go on the website, they register, they
you just go to the website. There's a couple ways to do it. You can go to drivetanks.com online, it's in the name, and just decide what you want to do from there and book an appointment there. Or you can call the main line, or you can call the Ox Hunting Ranch line and say, hey, I want to do tank stuff, and they'll help you set up appointments through that. We're pretty open now. I mean, quite honestly, we're a little slower because of the whole Rona thing, which kind of sucks. Coming out, everybody's still having a good time.
How did that whole thing start before we let you go? Did one of the guys just own a tank and said, hey, let's make some money off this thing?
No, I was doing some work for these guys for a side gig they had, building machine guns for them. And one day they called me up and they're like, hey, man, we want a tank. Okay, so I found them a Sherman tank in Maine, and they bought it and brought it down here, and the hunting ranch was open at that point. And they were just driving the tank around, having a good time.
What variant is it?
The client hunters were out here. M4A2E8.
That's the one with the original vertical suspension, or does that got the horizontal suspension on it?
I couldn't tell you, man. I'm the gun guy. It's got cool suspension, whatever it is. But anyway, the clients were like, hey, man, I'll pay you to go ahead and drive that. So it's kind of a light bulb moment. They just started buying more tanks and opened up drivetanks.com, and here we are. How many tanks do they have in their fleet now? 14 or 16. I don't remember right now. But we're getting more all the time, so it's kind of hard to keep track.
They got different variants from different eras, or are they all primarily World War II?
Oh, yeah. We have we have Scorpion. We have a couple Shermans. We actually have a Stug 3 off D, which is really, really cool to have. It's got some battle damage to it. That's kind of neat. We have a few different variants of the Leopards, 1A5s, 1A4s, stuff like that. Walker Bulldog, M114, Abbott, T72, British Chieftain, and some other ones that I can't remember right now off the top of my head.
So basically, every few months or years, you guys are building more shelters to park these things in, I would imagine. How many?
Pretty much, yeah, man. We have to keep building on buildings and stuff,
How many acres you guys have out there?
Total, it's 18,000, but that's the whole hunting ranch.
Sure.
So we only use probably about, I don't know, I'd say 1,000, 2,000 of it, something like that.
Fantastic. Glenn, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you on social media? Obviously, you're on Instagram. What's your primary, I guess?
Oh, yeah.
Where do you want people to find you at?
My primary handle is Flim Gunner, combination of, Fleming, and I used to be a gunner, so Flim Gunner. And I'm on Instagram. On Facebook, I kind of just do private Facebook thing. I don't do the public one anymore. And I'm also on Twitter under Flim Gunner as well.
Now, I saw your YouTube channel today. Are you still doing stuff actively with that, or is that something you just kind of do from here and there?
I haven't for a while, but I am going to start doing it again. I used to run one called the Gunner's Vault, which was a lot of fun talking about guns. Now I just do Glenn. I think it's Glenn J. Fleming or Glenn Fleming or something on YouTube.
I subscribed to it earlier.
A real eclectic sort of thing on there.
Well, I mean, you definitely got you're at the location where big people like Demolition Ranch and the guys from Ridiculousness have come out and shot content. So I mean, you're there. So why not utilize that same content and get some more people over to your YouTube channel and have some fun with it?
Yeah, I probably should. Honestly, I just never think about it.
It takes a lot. Actually, I got a new camera. Thanks to our stimulus check, I got a new camera coming my way.
Nice.
So that I can...
No, I might do that. That's probably a good idea. It seems like it'd be kind of fun.
I'll give you a little secret what I just did, because I'm a frugal guy. I have an older GoPro 3, which doesn't have stabilization. Most of my camera work I do with my phone because it's great. But I went on eBay, and you can get a brand new GoPro 7, which is still 4K. It's the latest variant's an 8, but I got a brand new GoPro, never been opened, 7 for like $230. I think a GoPro 8 retails like $400 brand new, and there's really not much difference as far as the quality goes.
I have a GoPro 8 that I use for when I race my car. I put it in the back, and it just records all kinds of stuff.
What do you race?
Lotus Elise.
Oh, so you're into car racing too, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying to be. I mean, this last year kind of took a hit on that because nothing was open, too many restrictions and all that. But this summer, rather, I'm really hoping to get back into it again.
What circuit do you usually race in?
Right now I'm trying for Harris Hill. MSR. Yeah, Harris Hill out in San Antonio. It's got a nice place. The buy-in's a little expensive, but it's nice. There's also a driveway up in Austin, and Circuit of the Americas is open every once in a while too. It's novices and stuff.
Well, if you're ever out in the San Antonio area, have you been down to Fredericksburg?
I haven't been for a while, no.
Head down to Fredericksburg and go to the National Museum of the Pacific War.
Yeah, I've heard that was a really cool place. I do need to check that out.
I subscribed to your YouTube channel today. Subscribe, go through my catalog. I was out there about 3 years ago, did a podcast from out there, and I shot some footage. Once again, not the greatest cameras inside as well as their Living History event. Cool. I jokingly tell them they have the Universal Studio of Living History. They have this great sound stage with sound effects, blasting pots. They actually have LSTs on tracks, landing craft. Yeah. They have a working flamethrower that they use at the end of every event. They basically blow out the cave. And I remember I was laying dead on the second tier down, and the heat coming off that, even though the stands are 200 yards away, just everybody in the crowd, you can just feel the heat rolling down.
Yeah, and it's not a buildup; it's instant.
Yeah.
Flamethrowers are neat.
But the museum itself, when you're driving through the town, the way that it was built, the footprint is amazing because it doesn't. It's not a huge eyesore in the city. But it's so large that when you buy a ticket, that ticket is good for 2 days.
Oh wow. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out, man. I've been meaning to. I don't get off ranch a whole lot, and when I do, it's usually just go San Antonio, hit REI or something like that.
They have the Japanese submarine that was captured on Pearl Harbor on display.
Oh, wow.
And it's not even behind rope. You can go up and touch it. You can see where when it traveled around the country, people graffitied it.
Yeah.
It's cool. They have they got a tank in there that was taken out during the Pacific War, and then they actually have the gun that took it out. And so,
no kidding.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And the reason it's in Fredericksburg is where Nimitz was born. And so how it came to be is Nimitz had a family motel, and people would start donating artifacts to them, and as time went by, it just developed into a museum, and it's obviously it's all dedicated to the Pacific War, but they do it's a high quality place. It's yeah, I mean, if you're out that way, and take your wife.
I'm off this week. I might go hit that. That might be a good idea.
Is your wife a wine fan?
No, not really.
I was gonna say Fredericksburg itself is a huge winery town. They got all these cool little restaurants and places and
I have heard that.
vineyards, and so that's kind of nice for the guys who want to go to the museum, but the wives aren't into the history aspect. They can kind of go shopping and get on the wine tour. But yeah, definitely head up that way sometime.
Yeah,
you may want to call to see what their hours are with the whole COVID nonsense going on, but yeah, definitely check that out.
Yeah, I'll do that. There's Josh. Where's Josh?
Hey, Josh, I saw Josh walking in the background.
It's hard to do this. There, Josh.
Looks like Josh has got an M1 jacket on. I like
Yeah,
that.
Josh is our tank mechanic.
Nice. Well, Glenn, I'm going to wrap it up, let you get back to work. I get back to work myself. Thank you so much. And if you ever have anything you want to promote or come back on, please just reach out to me and we'll get it done.
Cool. Thanks, man. That was fun.
Keep up with the physical fitness too, man. And,
awesome, man. I will. You will too, man.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
All right. Later, bud.
This has been a Digital 410 production.